Okay, this is Math 7, Unit 5, Lesson 17. This is our last one for this unit, and today we're talking about the stock market, which means we're going to do a lot of practice using some percentages, some changes, going up and down in terms of positive and negative values of dollar amounts, things like that. So just a lot of computation today. It's not so much about a lesson that's going to be here, it's just more putting it all together and working through the problems. So let's take a look at these together. First, we say that Lynn deposited $300 in a savings account that has a 2% interest rate per year. How much is her account after 1 year, and how much is it after 2 years? Okay, so what we want to think about is, and as been our typical setup, is we have the amount she has is 100% times the dollar amount, and then we're going to add to that, since interest rate, the interest rate, which is 2% times the dollar amount, and that's going to be our solution, right? That's going to be our total, so to speak. So this has been our typical setup. So 1% is 100% is written as 1, and then we're going to multiply 1 times 300. That's our dollar amount here, right? 1 stands for 100% when I move it over 2 decimal places, and we're going to add to that 2%, which is moving over 2 places, 0.02 times $300, which is going to equal our total amount. Okay, for, in this case here, for 1 year. All right, so what we've been doing is then we combine things like the 1 and the 0.02, right? We do 1.02, and we multiply that by the total, or the amount we deposited, $300, in order to find out what our total is going to be. So it's 300 times 1.02 will be our total, which in this case equals $306. So after 1 year, she's at $306 in the savings account, okay? So this 102, or this 1.02, is the same as 102%, which again, you can get by looking at, I'm going to take 100% of the money I have in the bank account, and I'm going to increase it by 2% more for 102%, and that's how I get that 1.02 decimal, right? So we've just been breaking it down this way throughout our problems, and here's what it looks like when you go like that. Okay, so now after year 1, we're at $306. So now for year 2, what I want to do is I'm going to maintain this still same 102%, right? 100% of what I had to start with, plus an additional 2% for the second year. So 1.02 times the new value, 306. And when I multiply that out, I have $312.12. So this is what I have after year 1. This is what I had after year 2. The key thing here, and that what they're checking you on, is to make sure that in year 2 you have the new money amount, right? You don't have $300 at year 2, you have $306 because you've earned money, so that value has to increase because you're just taking the year 1 value and making that your new balance in your account. Number 2, Diego wants to sell his bicycle. It costs $150 when he bought it. It is depreciated by 15%. How much should he sell it for? Okay, so again, 100% of 150 is what it was, and we know it decreases by a value of 15%. So 15% times 150. So this is kind of our setup here, right? It's 100% of 150 minus 15% of 150. And so when I write that as a decimal, we have 1 times 150 minus, move that over 2 places, 0.15 times 150. So 1 minus 0.15 is 0.85, and that's my 85%. And I'm multiplying that by the value of the bike when you first bought it, which was 150. So 0.85 times 150 is going to be equal to $127.50. So that's how we set up there. Could you get to that 0.85 a different way? Sure. We know that he sold it for depreciated, means going down 15%. So that's the same as 100 minus 15, which is 85, right? So that's where that came from right there. Okay, so let's turn the page and look at the next one, 17.2 on gains and losses. All right, it says here's some information from the stock market company in September 2016. Complete the table. So what we see here is we see Mobile Tech Company. The value on day one had a value of $107.95. And on day two, we see that it increased, so it went up to $111.77. So it's an increase in value from day one to day two. The actual change in dollars was $3.82, which you can find by doing day two minus day one, and that's going to equal your change here, right? In terms of a percentage of the value of day one, you take that change, right, and we do our change divided by day one to come up with a percentage. Now the percent's going to show up on your calculator as like 0.0354, and then you need to move that over to turn it into an actual percentage. So let's take a look at this one here. On the electrical appliance company, we see that it has a change in dollar amount of $2.43. Okay, so we also can see that the change as a percentage is a positive value, right? This is a positive change here. We have a negative change there and a positive change there. So based upon this information here, we know that the value of day two was an increase from day one. Okay, so to find out what day one was, we're going to take our change in dollar amount and I'm going to subtract it from 114. So here's 243 right there, and 3 minus 3 is 0. I'm going to borrow here. 10 minus 4 is 6. 3 minus 2 is 1. And we have $111.60 was where I was at day one. And the reason that's the case is because, why? Well, day two minus day one should equal that value right there, which it does. We just went the opposite direction, right, to figure that out. So my change was this amount right there. I can validate that by then taking a look at my change in dollars, 243, right? And if I take my 243, $2.43, and I divide that by my original value amount, day one, 111.6, we have that here, move it over two places, we have 2.1 and round that up 2.18 as our solution for our percentage. So we're good there. Looking at the oil corporation, we have $26, then we go to $25. So we are decreasing in our value there. So our change is a change of $1. That's how much we dropped down by. 26.14 minus 25.14 equals $1. And we can see that's correct. We have a decrease because our percentage as a change is going to be that negative, a negative value right there. Okay, so really I could say my change in dollars is a decrease. I could probably write down as a -1, because if I'm going to get a percentage that's going to be negative, I'm going to need a -1 divided by the original 26.14 to have a negative value there. Okay, to go from $7.38 to $7.17, again that's a decrease in value. So $7.38 minus $7.17 is going to be equal to 21 cents. So we're decreasing by 21 cents. That's our change in value in terms of dollars. So for my change to percentage, that would be figured out by doing 0.21, that change, divided by what I had on day one, which was $7.38. And so 21 cents negative divided by 731 is equal to negative 2.85. Right, again, as a decimal, it's going to come out as 0.028, and you have to round that up or keep that as a 5 there. Here on this one, the jewelry company here, this is probably the toughest one in this whole set, probably actually for the whole lesson today, because we don't have a value here or a value here. I'm going to go ahead and call this place, this spot right here, X for now. Okay, I'm going to call this X, and I'm going to call this Y. All right, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to move this up a little bit, just so we can have some space. I need some space to work on this. We said that in order to find the value of Y, what I had to do was take, remember about before, we said take the day 2 value minus the day 1 value, and that gets you Y. So it would look something like this. It would be day 2's value is $70.30 minus day 1, which was X, is going to be equal to Y. Okay, so that's one of our equations that we have to work with here. Can I solve that? Nope, I have two variables, so I really can't do much with that. I'm kind of stuck. Now, what I also know is that I know that this number here comes from being Y, right, this value, divided by the value of day 1. Y over X is going to equal in this case here, I don't want to write 2.27 because remember that's a percent. I need to write that as a decimal, so I'm going to write 0.0227. So I've converted 2.27% to a decimal. So these are my two equations that I can come up with here, but they both have x and y in them. So what I want to use is I want to use what's called some substitution, okay, for this problem. And that means I'm going to take my x, I'm going to put the x on the other side by multiplying both sides by the reciprocal, right? So multiply this by x and multiply by x so that y equals 0.0227x, okay? So now I have a value for y. That's my y value is going to be that I can now substitute into my first equation. So let's go back to my first equation and do that. I have 70.30 minus x equals, and I don't want to write y, I'm going to write down this value of y, right? 0.0227x. So now I have an equation with only one variable, x and x. To move x to the other side, I'm going to add, right? This is like a 1x. So we're going to add 1x over here. So then now I have $70.30 on this side equals 1.0227x on this side. To get the x by itself, I divide both sides by this number, which is 1.0227. And when you divide $70.30 divided by 1.0227, you come up with 68.739, or we can round that up to 68.74 is our value of x. So now I can come back and use this number and put this into my equation up here. My x value is now $68.74. Okay? So knowing that $68.74, and I want to find the difference here, can I find y? I sure can. And I do that by, here's what I'm doing, taking this x value and I come back up to my first equation right here and I'm going to plug that in, right? So what do? I'm going to take this value of x and I'm going to put that in place of that x there. And so I do $70.30 minus my x value, which was 68.74, and so my y value is $1.56. Okay? So a little complicated there. You had to use something called substitution to make that work out, to be able to solve for that problem. So this was kind of the tougher one of all of them. Now let's take a look at the results and see what they want you to do with it. Which company's change in dollars had the largest magnitude? So magnitude means I'm going to look at it and I'm going to talk about the absolute value of a number. So negatives is fine too. We're looking at which one had the biggest change, positive or negative. Okay, so our largest change in dollars was going to be right here at 3.82. That's our largest number in this whole column. So that's going to be the Mobile Tech. And they're going to have the largest change. Which company's change in percentage had the largest magnitude? That's that absolute value, magnitude, absolute value. So which one of these is the largest? I have 3.54. Here's a negative 3.83. So that seems to be the biggest one because again, negative 3.83 in terms of magnitude value is the same as 3.83, right? So that's our largest number in this whole lot, which means that that's going to go with the Oil Corporation. They had the largest change in percentage. All right, moving on to the next one, 17.3. What is a stock portfolio? So here we're going to look at some stock portfolios in two situations, year one and then year two is on the next page. So here we go. So technology company, the price of a stock is $107.75 and you own 98 shares of it. So your total value is found by multiplying this number times that number. So 107.75 times 98 is equal to $10,559.50. So it's just a straight multiplication problem to say what's the value, right? If the price was $1 and I had 3 of them, 1 times 3 is going to be a value of 3. Okay, and that's the idea. Okay, this is your dollar, that's how many you have, so it gives you your total. So 133.54 times 27 gives you $3,605.58. 95.95 times 135 of those is $12,953.25. And the $58.96 times 100 is going to give you $5,896. Now, as a point of reference here, that means that the sum total, if this is your stock portfolio and you own all these stocks, right? And this is how much you own, your portfolio has a value of all this combined. In this case, it'd be $33,014.33. So that means you have a total of this amount of money invested in the stock market in these 4 companies. Okay, that's how much money you've invested. So you're doing okay. Now we're going to take this number and we're going to go to the second page, which is to sample the profile the next year. Okay, so what happens with stocks is you buy them for this amount. You had $33,000 and you basically took your money and you bought all these shares of the company. It's like buying kind of partial ownership of a company. If the company does well, you're going to make money. If they do bad, you lose money. Okay, because the value of the share price, the share value is going to go up or down depending upon how the stock market works and if people like it or don't like it. So let's go to the next year. You've invested $33,000.14. We had $33,000, $33.14 and $33 what we invested to start with. And let's see what happens on the next year. Next year comes. The stock value has a price change of 2.43%. We can see that that is an increase, right? So instead of being $107, it's going to go up 2.43%. So I'm going to take my 107.75 and multiply by 0.0243. Oops, back that up there, 0.0243, right? I have to turn that into a decimal, 0.0243, and that gets me 2.61 or 2.69. So that's my price, right? That's my actual dollar value. So we're going to just put in my, down below here on the side that this is 2.62. I'm going to round that up. I need to add 2.62 to what I had before, 107.75, and we have $110.37. So this $110 came from adding the old price plus the price change. The price change is listed as a percent, so you have to turn that into a dollar amount in order to find your new price. So this new price is $110.37, and I'm going to multiply that by the 98 that I have to find out the value of the tech company is now $10,816.26. So that's a good increase, right? It went up 2.43%, so we made some money on that one, looking good. When you get to the airline company, though, you notice that the price change is a decrease of 7.67%. So to get that there, I turn that into a decimal, 0.0767, and we have 133.54 times 0.0767. It means we're going to be losing, in this case, $10.24. Right? So I'm going to do 133, my starting amount, and I'm subtracting $10.24 to find my new price in dollars, which is now $123.30. So it's lost some money. I'll multiply that by 27. When I multiply that amount by 27, I end up with $329.10. Okay. So here on this next one here, we can see that I have the new price in dollars. This value has decreased from 95 to 87. So I know my percentage is going to be negative. So I want to find out what that percentage is going to be. I can look at the difference here, $95.95 minus $87.58. I know that I dropped $8.37. That's a dollar amount. I want to put that as a percentage. So I'll do 837, and I'm going to divide that from the old price, $95.95, and we have, in this case here, 8.72. So as a percent, this is a negative 8.72 as a percentage. So don't get those confused there. This is what you're looking for. This is the dollar amount. That's why I put a dollar sign there for the change from here to here. But as a percent of the original, it's a negative 8.2%. I look at the value of my new shares. I have this number times 135, and that's going to equal $11,823.30 there. Again, the next one here, we can see we are decreasing, right? We're dropping by 5.56%. So I'm going to take my 58.96 and I'm going to divide it by 5.56%. So that tells me that I'm dropping by, in this case here, $10.60. So I take the original amount, 58.96, and I subtract $10.60 to find out my new total, which doesn't quite look right. Yeah, that should be right. Okay, so 58.96. Oh, sorry. Let's do 5. Okay, so this is 0.0556. All right, let me back up just a second here. I was going too fast. So as a percentage, it's negative that. So we're going to multiply 58.96 times 0.0556, and that gets me $3.20. We'll round that up to 28 cents. So that's my change. I'm dropping that much. So 58.96 minus 3.28 gets me to $55.68. So a 5% decrease moves it to there. I take that value times 100, and that value is now worth $55,568. Okay? So in total, my total value of all my stocks at the end of this year, I add this up, and what I have now is $31,536.66. So the question comes up then, did the entire portfolio increase or decrease in value? We started at $33,014.33, and we ended up after a year at $31,536.66. So what we can see is that there is a clear decrease in value going from $33,000 to $31,000. So in terms of how your stock do, you lost a lot of money. And that's how that works there. Okay, the next activity, something your teacher may or may not do with you. They're going to give you a list of stocks for you to find out a value of stocks and play with the stock market a little bit, which is lots of fun. That's it. Have a great day. Do well on your unit test, and we'll see you at the next one.